Many of our viewers get confused by the various names they hear about newcomers to the United States: immigrant, expatriate, refugee, migrant, and so on. We thought we would take some time to talk about the technical vocabulary around those global people on the move. The main distinction to make is how long a person is planning to stay outside his or her native country. That is, are they moving temporarily or permanently? In the temporary category are people who move out of their homeland but plan to move back home eventually. In this group, there are three kinds of people on the move: expatriates, international students, and migrants. Expatriates, sometimes called expats for short, are people who move to take a job in another country for a while. An example would be my friend Paulo Sayani, who originally came to Michigan from his native Brazil. His employer, Dow Chemical Brazil, sent him to the United States on a several-year assignment to learn the U.S. side of business. International students, or foreign students, are the second kind of temporary folks on the move. They move to another country for learning opportunities, sometimes to get technical skills or earn college degrees, or maybe to get an appreciation for the host country, perhaps to learn more about the culture. Other students move to improve their language skills. Foreign students in the U.S. sometimes come for a year or so to study English as a second language, or ESL. UNA Odendaal, a past guest on our show, moved from South Africa to Canada as a child and then came to Michigan to study and play soccer. After she graduated and helped her teammates win 2 national soccer titles, she moved back to Ontario, Canada, where her family lives. Migrants are the third category of people who move temporarily. This is a general expression for someone who goes from one place to another, often for economic reasons. An example would be the migrant farm workers who follow the harvest seasons across U.S. agricultural states. An example of these kinds of people would be my friend Lupe Ramos Montini's family. Her parents were from Mexico and settled in Texas, where Lupe was born, but they came north in the summers to make extra money by harvesting crops before going back to Texas for the school year. The other kinds of movers are those folks who relocate permanently. These folks include immigrants, émigrés, refugees, asylees, and defectors. Immigrant is the word our viewers most commonly hear. These are people who move into a country. You can think of them as in-migrating folks. Immigrants are the ones who choose to leave their homeland for a better life. They may move for better work opportunities, cleaner air, higher quality schools, or joining family members who already moved there. Famous immigrants include basketball player Hakeem Olajuwon from Nigeria, diplomat Madeleine Albright from Czechoslovakia, and movie director Ang Lee from Taiwan. One important fact about immigrants is that they have the option of moving back to their homelands if things don't work out in their new countries. The next class of people on the move is a fancy word, émigré. In fact, it's so fancy that we sometimes write it with accent marks, émigré. Essentially, these folks are just like immigrants, but we choose to emphasize the direction of their move. That is, émigrés are out migrants, whereas immigrants are in migrants. For example, my grandparents emigrated from Northern Europe and immigrated to the United States. The next class of permanent movers is refugees. These are people who are fleeing their homelands for a variety of issues. They're escaping death threats, torture, persecution, war, imprisonment, drought, flood, or famine. It's important to understand that refugees are forced from their homes without the option of going back. Examples include our former guests on Tron, who had to leave Vietnam when her country fell to the communists, and Augie Nsabimana, who had to run for his life when hundreds of thousands of his people were being massacred in his native Rwanda. A related class of permanent migrants is asylum seekers. Asylees are similar to refugees in that they're not safe in their homeland. Their status is different in that they come to safe countries, like the United States, first, and then make a formal request for asylum status. People in this class might include LGBT citizens of many third world countries which have harsh legislation that calls for imprisonment or even execution due to a person's sexual orientation. The final category of this permanent migrants is defectors. These are people who want to leave their home country, but the government will not let them go. This means they must escape across heavily guarded borders in order to pursue their dreams elsewhere. A heartwarming example is Feel Like You Belong guest Brian Pena. Brian is a Cuban-born baseball player who escaped his team's guards, hid out in the jungle, and finally made it to the United States, where he now plays in the major leagues. In summary, people move for many reasons. Some move temporarily with the intention of going back home. They include expats, international students, and migrant workers. Others move permanently. Immigrants and émigrés move with the prospect of moving back home if things don't work out. On the other hand, refugees, asylees, and defectors usually don't have a plan B and may never be able to return to the lands of their birth. As we look at the movement of human beings across this planet for millennia, there are many reasons that compel their migration. Usually it has become something powerful beckons. At Feel Like You Belong, we urge natives to take the time to get to know their brave neighbors, co-workers, and community members who made the personal sacrifices to make the U.S. their new home.